The garbage bags made a hollow sound as they hit the concrete floor. Black plastic, the cheap kind that ripped easily, now held everything Naomi had been allowed to keep. Her clothes, her books, her grandmother's quilt, all stuffed into trash bags like she was being evicted from a crack house instead of the home she'd lived in for 8 years. "Make sure she gets everything out by tonight," Gregory's mother, Patricia, said from the doorway of the garage. She didn't even look at Naomi. Just stood there in her black funeral dress, arms crossed, like Naomi was a stranger who'd wandered into her property. It had been 4 hours since they'd buried Gregory. 4 hours since they'd lowered his casket into the ground. Naomi hadn't even been allowed to ride in the family car from the cemetery. Patricia had told her there wasn't enough room, even though Naomi could see 2 empty seats through the window. "I said tonight," Patricia repeated, her voice sharp. "I want you gone before dinner. We need time to grieve as a family, and you're not family anymore. Gregory's gone, so your connection to us is over." Naomi stood in the center of the garage, surrounded by 12 trash bags. Her whole life reduced to garbage. She wore the same black dress she'd worn to the funeral, the one she'd bought 3 days ago when she got the call that Gregory had collapsed at work. Heart attack. 42 years old. Dead before the ambulance arrived. She should have cried. She should have screamed. She should have fought back when Gregory's brother Terrence and his cousin had literally picked up her belongings and thrown them into bags. When they'd stripped her closet bare while she was still at the funeral home making arrangements. When they'd changed the locks before Gregory's body was even cold. But Naomi didn't cry. She just looked at Patricia, really looked at her and smiled. It wasn't a big smile. Just a small curve of her lips that didn't reach her eyes. But it was enough to make Patricia uncomfortable. "What are you smiling about?" Patricia demanded, taking a step into the garage. "You think this is funny? My son just died and you're standing here smiling?" "I'm not smiling because Gregory died," Naomi said quietly. Her voice was steady, calm. 8 years of keeping quiet had taught her how to control her emotions. "I'm smiling because I just realized something." "Realized what?" Naomi picked up 2 of the trash bags. They were heavy, but she'd always been stronger than she looked. "That I'm free." Patricia's face turned red. "Free? You ungrateful little—" "I'm leaving now," Naomi interrupted. She'd never interrupted Patricia before. Never raised her voice, never talked back, never stood up for herself. Gregory had always said his mother was sensitive, that Naomi needed to be patient, that family was important. But Gregory wasn't here anymore. "Someone will come for the rest of the bags tomorrow," Naomi continued. She walked past Patricia, out of the garage and into the driveway where her car was parked. Her car, the only thing she'd driven here that was actually in her name. Behind her, she could hear Patricia yelling something, but Naomi didn't listen. She loaded the 2 bags into her trunk and got into the driver's seat. Through the front window of the house, she could see Gregory's family gathering in the living room. His father, his 3 siblings, his cousins, his aunt and uncle. 17 people total, all there to divide up what they thought Gregory had left behind. They had no idea. Naomi started the car and pulled out of the driveway. She didn't look back at the house with the mortgage she'd been paying for 6 years. The house she'd painted, decorated, and maintained while Gregory told everyone he was the provider. The house that held 8 years of lies, 8 years of pretending to be someone she wasn't, 8 years of making herself small so Gregory could feel big. Her phone buzzed. A text from Terrence. "Don't even think about trying to get any of Gregory's money. He didn't leave you anything." Lawyer confirmed it. Naomi deleted the text without responding. She drove for 20 minutes before she pulled into the parking lot of the hotel. Not just any hotel, the Meridian, the nicest hotel in the city. 32 floors of luxury with a penthouse suite that cost more per night than most people made in a week. The valet took her car without question. The concierge greeted her by name. "Welcome back, Ms. Naomi. Your suite is ready." "Thank you, James." The elevator rose smoothly to the 28th floor. Her suite had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, a king-size bed with sheets that probably cost more than the trash bags her belongings were in, and a bathroom bigger than the bedroom she'd shared with Gregory. She checked in 3 days ago, right after Gregory died. Paid for 2 weeks up front, though she'd probably need it longer while she figured out her next move. Naomi set the 2 trash bags down by the door and walked to the window. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink. Down below, people were living their lives, unaware that hers had just changed completely. Her phone rang. Patricia. Naomi declined the call. It rang again. Terrence. Declined. A text from Gregory's sister, Monica. "You're a cold, heartless woman. Gregory loved you and this is how you treat his memory?" We'll make sure everyone knows what kind of person you really are. Naomi turned off her phone and dropped it on the couch. She walked to the bedroom, opened her laptop and logged into her email. 347 unread messages, most of them from work. Her real work, the work she'd been doing for 12 years since before she'd even met Gregory. There was one email at the top, marked urgent. From her lawyer, Robert Chin. The subject line read, "Company valuation complete. Call me immediately." Naomi clicked open the email. She read it once, then twice, then a third time to make sure she wasn't misunderstanding. Then she started laughing. It wasn't a happy laugh or a sad laugh. It was the laugh of someone who just realized that the people who'd treated her like trash had absolutely no idea who she really was. Her company, the tech company she'd founded when she was 23, the company she'd built quietly while pretending to be just Gregory's supportive wife, the company Gregory didn't even know existed because she'd kept it completely separate from their marriage, that company had just been valued at $50 million. $50 million. And Gregory's family had just thrown her belongings into trash bags and kicked her out of a house she'd been paying for. Naomi stopped laughing and opened a new email. She began typing to Robert, "I'm ready to move forward with everything we discussed. No more hiding. No more pretending. I want them to know exactly what they threw away." She hit send and closed the laptop. Tomorrow she'd go back for the rest of her trash bags. She'd let Patricia feel like she'd won, let the whole family celebrate having the house to themselves, let them believe they'd gotten rid of the burden of Gregory's widow. Because in 3 weeks, when the mortgage payment didn't process and the bank started calling, when the leases on the cars came due and there was no one to pay them, when they realized that everything they thought Gregory owned was actually tied to accounts that no longer existed, then they'd understand. Naomi walked back to the window and looked out at the city. Somewhere down there, Gregory's family was probably eating dinner, probably laughing, probably feeling relieved that they didn't have to deal with her anymore. Let them laugh now. In a few weeks, they'd learn the truth. The woman they'd thrown away like garbage was worth more than any of them would see in 10 lifetimes. And she was never, ever taking them back. 8 years earlier, Naomi had walked into the coffee shop on 4th Street with her laptop bag and a dream. She was 25 years old, fresh out of grad school with a computer science degree, and she'd just quit her job at a tech firm because they'd stolen her code and passed it off as their own. She'd spent 6 months building something new, something better. A software platform that would revolutionize how small businesses manage their customer relationships. Nothing fancy, nothing that would make headlines, but something useful, something that worked. The coffee shop became her office. Every day from 9 to 5, she'd sit in the corner booth, coding, testing, refining. She lived on coffee and muffins, slept 4 hours a night, and slowly watched her savings account drain. That's where she met Gregory. He'd walked in one Tuesday afternoon, wearing a suit that was a bit too tight and a smile that was a bit too confident. He'd ordered some complicated drink, flirted with the barista, and then noticed Naomi in her corner. "You're here every day," he said, sliding into the seat across from her without asking. "What are you working on?" She should have told him to leave. Should have said she was busy. But she was tired and lonely and he seemed interested, so she told him about her software. Told him about her vision, her plans, her dreams. "That's amazing," Gregory said, and he seemed genuine. "You built all this yourself?" "Every line of code." They started dating a week later. He was a sales manager at a pharmaceutical company, made decent money, drove a nice car. He took her to restaurants she couldn't afford and told her she didn't have to worry about her little business, that he'd take care of her. My Little Business had launched 6 months after they started dating. Within a year she had 50 clients. Within 2 years, 500. The revenue was enough to hire a small team, rent an office space and actually pay herself a salary. But she didn't tell Gregory the numbers. Didn't tell him about the growth, the success, the money. Because every time she tried to talk about her work, he'd pat her hand and say, "That's nice, honey," before changing the subject to his job, his achievements, his life. So she stopped trying. They got married when she was 27. Simple ceremony, just family and a few friends. His family had seemed nice at first. Patricia had hugged her, told her she was gaining a daughter, said all the right things. But the comments started almost immediately. "When are you going to give us grandchildren? You should really let Gregory handle the finances. Men are better at that sort of thing. Maybe you should focus less on your little hobby and more on taking care of your husband." Her little hobby was now bringing in 7 figures annually. She had 80 employees. She'd been featured in 3 tech magazines, though she'd always used her maiden name for business, kept her professional life completely separate from her marriage. Gregory never noticed. He'd come home from work, complain about his boss, eat the dinner she'd cooked and fall asleep in front of the television. On weekends, his family would come over and Naomi would play the role of the perfect wife, quiet, agreeable, invisible. During the day while Gregory was at work, she ran her company. She made deals worth millions, hired brilliant people, built something real. Then she'd come home, change into comfortable clothes and pretend to be someone smaller. It was exhausting. Year 3 of marriage, Gregory got promoted to regional sales director. He started making more money, started acting like he was the reason they could afford their lifestyle. Started taking credit for the house renovations Naomi had paid for, the new furniture she'd bought, the vacation she'd planned and funded. His family praised him constantly. "Gregory is such a good provider," Patricia would say. "Naomi is so lucky to have you." Naomi would smile and nod and say nothing. Year 5, Gregory started coming home late. Started taking phone calls in the other room. Started going on business trips that didn't match his company's schedule. Naomi knew he was cheating. She'd found the texts on his phone by accident when he'd asked her to check his messages while he was driving. Texts from Candy, heart emojis, late-night messages, plans to meet up. She could have confronted him. Could have demanded the truth. But she was tired, so tired, of fighting to be seen in her own marriage. So she said nothing. Just started planning her exit, talking to divorce lawyers, preparing to finally separate her life from his. Then 2 weeks before she was going to ask for a divorce, Gregory came home from work and said, "I need you to do me a favor." He wanted her to sign some paperwork, something about refinancing the house. Naomi read through it carefully, she always read everything, and realized what he was trying to do. He wanted to put the house entirely in his name, remove her from the mortgage and the deed. "Why?" she'd asked. "For tax purposes," he'd said smoothly. "My accountant recommended it. It'll save us money." It was a lie. She knew it was a lie. He probably wanted to make sure she got nothing in the divorce he probably thought was coming. "I'll think about it," she'd said. "There's nothing to think about," Gregory had said, his voice sharp. "I'm your husband. You should trust me." "I do trust you," she'd lied. "I just want to have my lawyer look at it first." That had made him angry. They'd fought, really fought for the first time in years. He'd called her paranoid, controlling, ungrateful. Said he'd given her everything and this was how she repaid him. She'd never signed the papers. The affair with Candace continued. Naomi saw her once, accidentally. She'd stopped by Gregory's office to drop off his wallet, he'd forgotten it at home, and there she was. Candace from accounting, 26 years old, with long blonde hair and too much makeup. She'd been sitting on the edge of Gregory's desk, laughing at something he'd said, her hand on his arm. Gregory had seen Naomi in the doorway and his face had gone white. "Naomi, I didn't know you were coming by." "You forgot your wallet," she'd said, holding it up. She'd looked at Candace, really looked at her and felt nothing. No anger, no jealousy, no pain. Just a deep, overwhelming sense of relief that this marriage was almost over. "Thanks," Gregory had said, taking the wallet. "Candace, this is my wife, Naomi." "Naomi, this is Candace from our accounting department." "Nice to meet you," Candace had said, not meeting her eyes. "You too," Naomi had replied and walked out. That night, Gregory had come home with flowers. "I'm sorry," he'd said. "I know how that looked, but Candace was just helping me with some work stuff. Nothing's going on. I love you." More lies. But Naomi had accepted the flowers, said it was fine, let him think she believed him. Because she'd just gotten the final numbers from her company's quarterly report, and they were about to close a deal that would triple their value. She had other things to focus on. 3 years later, she was still married to Gregory. Still pretending. Still living a double life. Her company had grown beyond her wildest expectations, but at home she was still just Gregory's quiet wife. Then came the day of the phone call. She'd been in a meeting when her phone rang. A known number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. "Is this Naomi Williams?" a woman's voice asked. She'd kept Gregory's last name for marriage, even though her business operated under her maiden name, Naomi Fletcher. "Yes. This is Memorial Hospital. Your husband, Gregory Williams, was brought in about 20 minutes ago. He collapsed at work. I'm sorry to tell you this, but he didn't survive. It was a massive heart attack. Just like that. No warning, no goodbye. Dead at 42. Naomi had thanked the woman, ended the call, and sat very still in her office chair. Her assistant had poked her head in. "Everything okay?" "My husband just died," Naomi had said, and then she'd started planning the funeral. She'd called Patricia to tell her. Patricia had screamed, cried, and then said, "You need to come to the house right now." We need to make arrangements. Family decisions. Naomi had gone to the house she'd been paying the mortgage on for 6 years, though Gregory's family didn't know that. They'd swarmed her with questions about insurance, about money, about what Gregory had left behind. I don't know, she'd said honestly. His lawyer will have to tell us. The funeral had been 2 days later. Naomi had paid for everything, the casket, the flowers, the reception afterward, because Gregory's life insurance wouldn't pay out for weeks. His family had praised her for being so responsible, so organized. Then for hours after the funeral, they'd thrown her belongings into trash bags and told her to get out. Standing in her hotel suite now, looking out at the city, Naomi thought about all those years of pretending. All those years of making herself small. All those years of letting Gregory and his family believe she was nothing without him. Those years were over. Her phone was still off, sitting on the couch where she'd left it. She didn't turn it back on. Tomorrow she'd deal with Patricia's calls, with Terrence's threats, with Monica's accusations. Tonight, she was just going to sit here and think about how good it felt to finally stop pretending. The lawyer's office was on the 14th floor of a building downtown, with windows that overlooked the financial district. Naomi arrived exactly on time, wearing a navy blue dress and heels that clicked professionally on the marble floor. Patricia was already there, sitting in the waiting room with Gregory's father, Howard. Terrence sat next to them, scrolling through his phone. Monica and her husband were in the corner, whispering to each other. They all looked up when Naomi walked in. "You're late," Patricia said, even though the clock on the wall showed Naomi was 3 minutes early. "I'm on time," Naomi replied calmly. She sat down in a chair across from them, crossing her legs at the ankle and folding her hands in her lap. The picture of a grieving widow. "Humph," Patricia snorted. "Well, this shouldn't take long anyway." Gregory's affairs were very clear. Were they? Naomi asked mildly. Before Patricia could respond, the receptionist called them back. "Mr. Henderson will see you now." They filed into the conference room, a long space with a mahogany table and leather chairs. The lawyer, Thomas Henderson, was a man in his 60s with gray hair and reading glasses perched on his nose. "Please, everyone sit," he said, gesturing to the chairs. "I know this is a difficult time, and I'll try to make this as quick and painless as possible." Patricia sat at the head of the table like she owned the place. Howard sat next to her, then Terrence, then Monica and her husband. Naomi took a seat at the far end, putting as much distance between herself and Gregory's family as possible. Thomas opened a folder and pulled out several documents. Gregory Williams' last will and testament was updated 6 months ago. I'll read through the relevant portions now. 6 months ago. That would have been right around the time Gregory had tried to get Naomi to sign the refinancing papers. She wondered what else he'd been planning. "To my beloved mother, Patricia Williams," Thomas read, "I leave my house at 847 Maple Drive, along with all furnishings and contents therein." Patricia gasped. "The whole house?" "Yes, ma'am." "The house is yours, provided the mortgage is satisfied or arrangements are made to continue payments." "Of course," Patricia said, waving her hand dismissively. "That's fine. Continue." Naomi said nothing. Just listened. "To my father, Howard Williams, I leave my truck and my tools." Howard nodded, satisfied. "To my brother, Terrence Williams, I leave my fishing boat and my investment portfolio with Merrill Lynch, account number ending in 4782. Terrence leaned forward. "How much is in that account?" Thomas checked his notes. "Approximately $42,000. "That's it," Terrence said. "Gregory always said he was saving for retirement." "That appears to be the extent of that particular account," Thomas said carefully. "To my sister, Monica Williams Porter, I leave my record collection and my savings account at First National Bank, account number ending in 9123. "How much?" Monica asked. "Approximately $18,000. Monica frowned but said nothing. Thomas continued reading through smaller items, Gregory's watch to his father, his golf clubs to a cousin, some books to an uncle. Then he set down the will and looked at everyone over his glasses. "That concludes the specific bequests. Now, as for the remainder of the estate." "What about Naomi?" Patricia interrupted. "Surely Gregory left something for his widow." Thomas looked at Naomi, then back at Patricia. "Mr. Williams left no specific bequest to his wife in this will." The room erupted. "Nothing?" Monica said. "He left her nothing?" "Well, that's because everything else must be going to her automatically," Terrence said. "Spousal rights and all that." Thomas cleared his throat. "Actually, that's what I need to explain. The house, as mentioned, goes to Mrs. Patricia Williams." The accounts I mentioned are the only accounts Mr. Williams had in his name alone. Wait, Patricia said slowly. What do you mean in his name alone? I mean that Mr. Williams' estate consists of what I just read to you. The house, the vehicles, the accounts mentioned. That's everything he owned. That's impossible, Howard said. Gregory made good money. He was a regional director. Where's the rest? Thomas shuffled through his papers. According to the financial disclosure Mr. Williams provided when he updated his will, these were his only assets. What about the cars? Terrence demanded. There were 2 cars. He left the truck, but what about that Lexus and that BMW in the driveway? According to DMV records, neither of those vehicles are registered to Gregory Williams. The family all turned to look at Naomi. They're yours? Patricia asked, her voice rising. I don't know what you're talking about, Naomi said, which was technically true. She didn't know which specific vehicles Gregory's family meant. She did know that every vehicle at the house except Gregory's old truck was leased through her company. This is ridiculous, Monica said. Gregory had to have more money than this. He was paying the mortgage on a $500,000 house. Thomas looked uncomfortable. According to the mortgage company, the house has been in default twice in the past 3 years. Both times, payments were brought current by transfers from an external source. What external source? Patricia demanded. I'm not at liberty to say. The point is, Mrs. Patricia Williams, the house is now yours, but there is still approximately $240,000 owed on the mortgage. You'll need to either pay it off or continue making monthly payments of approximately $3,000. Patricia's face went white. $3,000? Per month? Yes, ma'am. How was Gregory affording that? Thomas looked at Naomi again. Everyone looked at Naomi. I have nothing to add, Naomi said quietly. This is insane, Terrence said, standing up. Where's all the money? Gregory drove expensive cars, wore nice clothes, took vacations. Perhaps you should ask where the money for those things actually came from, Naomi said. It was the first real statement she'd made since entering the room. What's that supposed to mean? Monica snapped. It means, Naomi said, standing up, that maybe Gregory wasn't as successful as he led you to believe. Maybe he was good at spending money that wasn't his. Maybe you all made assumptions about his finances without actually knowing the truth. Are you saying he was using your money? Patricia said, her voice dripping with disbelief. You didn't even have a real job. Naomi smiled, the same small smile she'd given Patricia in the garage. I think we're done here. Mr. Henderson, is there anything else you need from me? No, Mrs. Williams. If you could just sign this acknowledgement that you've been informed of the will's contents. Wait, Patricia said. She can't just leave. We have questions. I'm sure you do, Naomi said. She signed the paper Thomas pushed across the table and picked up her purse. But those are your questions, not mine. Good luck with the house, Patricia. $3,000 a month is a lot of money. She walked to the door. You owe us answers. Terrence shouted behind her. Naomi paused at the door and looked back. I don't owe you anything. Gregory made sure of that when he left me out of his will. You all got what he wanted you to have. Congratulations. She left the conference room, walked through the waiting area, and pressed the button for the elevator. Behind her, she could hear raised voices, arguments starting, Patricia saying something about getting their own lawyer. The elevator arrived. Naomi stepped in and pressed the button for the lobby. As the doors closed, she saw Thomas Henderson leaving the conference room, shaking his head. Her phone buzzed. A text from her assistant at the company. The Jensen contract just closed. $22 million. Congratulations, boss. Naomi texted back. Excellent work. Give everyone on the team a bonus. The elevator descended. By the time it reached the lobby, she'd already forgotten about Gregory's family arguing over his $42,000. She had 22 million more reasons not to care. Naomi's real lawyer's office was nothing like Thomas Henderson's traditional setup. Robert Chen's firm occupied the top floor of a glass building with a rooftop garden and modern art in the lobby. He was 45 sharp and had been handling her business affairs since she'd started the company. He was also one of exactly 3 people who knew the full truth about her marriage to Gregory. Come in, Robert said when his assistant showed her into his corner office. I heard about the will reading. How'd it go? About as expected, Naomi said, settling into the chair across from his desk. They got the house they can't afford, some savings accounts, and a lot of questions they don't have answers to. And they still have no idea about Fletcher Technologies? None. Fletcher Technologies. Her company. Named with her maiden name because she'd started it 3 years before meeting Gregory and saw no reason to change it. A tech company that provided customer relationship management software to small and medium businesses across the country. Robert pulled up a file on his computer and turned the screen so Naomi could see. I wanted to go over everything with you in person. The valuation came back at $50 million. That's 30% higher than we projected last year. $50 million. The number still felt unreal, even though she'd been building toward it for 12 years. The Jensen contract pushed us over, she said. $22 million in new revenue this year alone. That's right. Now, let's talk about what this means for you personally. Robert pulled out a different folder. I've been tracking all the expenses you've covered during your marriage. The house mortgage, which you've been paying for 6 years through automatic transfers from your business account. The 2 leased vehicles also paid through the business. The credit card bills that Gregory ran up and you quietly paid off. Want to know the total? Hit me. $1.2 million. Naomi felt her stomach drop. I knew it was a lot, but... $1.2 million, Robert repeated. That's what you spent keeping up the illusion that Gregory was a successful provider. Why didn't you say something? I did. Multiple times. You said you were handling it. Robert leaned back in his chair. I'm not judging you, Naomi. You're my client and my job is to do what you ask. But I'm going to say this once. You don't have to keep paying for that house. You don't have to keep those car leases going. You don't owe Gregory's family anything. I know. Do you? Because I saw the memo you sent me yesterday about possibly helping them with the mortgage. Naomi shook her head. I was upset. Emotional. I'm not helping them. I just wanted to know what my options were. Your options are simple. You stop all automatic payments related to that house and those vehicles immediately. The house goes into foreclosure or Patricia figures out how to pay the mortgage herself. The cars get repossessed. You walk away clean. They'll hate me. They already hate you. They threw your belongings into trash bags and kicked you out of a house you were paying for. They're going to hate you whether you help them or not. He was right. Naomi had known he was right since the moment Patricia had told her to be gone by dinner. Okay, she said. Stop all payments. Let them figure it out. Good. Robert made a note. Now the cars. Both leases are through Fletcher Technologies. The Lexus and the BMW. You want to keep them or return them? Return them. I never liked either of those cars. Gregory picked them out. Done. I'll have them picked up next week. Make it 2 weeks. Give them a little time to settle in before the repo men show up. Robert raised an eyebrow but nodded. Anything else? The life insurance, Naomi said. Gregory had a policy through his work. $500,000. I need to know who the beneficiary is. Already checked. He changed it 6 months ago. The beneficiary is Patricia Williams. Of course it was. Same time he'd updated his will, tried to get the house in his name only. Gregory had been systematically cutting Naomi out of his life. So his mother gets $500,000, Naomi said. Eventually. These things take time to process, especially if there are questions about the policy. But yes, eventually she'll get it. Good for her. Robert looked at her carefully. You're being very calm about all this. I'm tired, Robert. I'm tired of being angry, tired of feeling betrayed, tired of caring what they think. Gregory made his choices. His family made theirs. Now I'm making mine. Which are? I'm done hiding. No more keeping the business secret. No more pretending to be someone I'm not. I want you to file all the paperwork to formally separate my assets from Gregory's estate. I want my name on everything that's actually mine. And I want to move forward with expanding the business. Expansion how? Naomi pulled out her tablet and brought up a presentation she'd been working on. We've been focused on small to medium businesses. I want to move into enterprise-level clients. That means hiring more developers, more sales staff, opening offices in 3 new cities. I've been holding back because I didn't want to draw attention, didn't want Gregory asking questions about where the money was coming from. But that's not a concern anymore. Robert scrolled through the presentation. This is ambitious. You're talking about doubling your workforce. Tripling it. I want Fletcher Technologies to be a major player, not just a successful small company. And I want everyone to know my name. Revenge through success, Robert said. I like it. It's not revenge, Naomi said. It's just the truth. This is who I've always been. I just stopped pretending otherwise. They spent the next hour going over details. Robert would file the paperwork to freeze Gregory's estate, Prevent anyone from accessing anything that might be considered joint property until everything was sorted out. He'd send letters to the mortgage company and the car lease company, terminating all arrangements. He'd handle the media inquiries that would inevitably come when Naomi started operating openly as CEO of a $50 million company. One more thing, Naomi said as she was getting ready to leave. I need a new place to live. Not staying at the Meridian? Hotels are fine for short-term, but I need something permanent. Something that's mine. Something that says this is who I am now. Robert smiled. I know a real estate agent who specializes in high-end properties. I'll set up a meeting. Thanks. Naomi stood and shook his hand. For everything, Robert. Not just the legal work. For being one of the few people who knew the truth and never judged me for it. You were in a difficult situation. You handled it the best way you knew how. Now you get to move forward. Naomi left his office feeling lighter than she had in years. The elevator down was empty, giving her a moment to look at her reflection in the mirrored walls. She looked different. Not physically, but something in her expression, the way she held herself. Like she'd been carrying something heavy and finally set it down. Her phone buzzed. Patricia. Naomi declined the call. 2 seconds later, a text. We need to talk about the house. Call me immediately. Naomi deleted the text without responding. Another text, this time from Monica. You know something about Gregory's money. Tell us or we'll take you to court. Naomi smiled and deleted that one too. Let them threaten. Let them demand. Let them figure out that all their assumptions about Gregory, about his success, about his life, were built on money that was never his to begin with. She walked out of the building and into the parking garage where her car was waiting. Her car, the only one that had always been in her name. A simple Toyota she'd bought with her own money years ago, before Gregory, before the marriage, before any of this. She got in, started the engine, and drove toward her hotel. Along the way, she passed the house on Maple Drive. Gregory's truck was in the driveway. 2 other cars she didn't recognize, probably family members visiting Patricia. Naomi didn't slow down. Didn't look back. Just kept driving toward her future, where trash bags and garage floors and whispered insults were nothing but memories. Tomorrow, Robert would start the paperwork. Tomorrow, the payments would stop. Tomorrow, Patricia would realize that the house she'd been so eager to claim came with a price she couldn't afford. But tonight, Naomi was going to order room service, take a long bath, and sleep in a bed that no one else had ever slept in. Tonight she was free. The first letter arrived at 8:47 Maple Drive on a Tuesday morning, exactly 3 weeks after Gregory's funeral. Patricia signed for it, confused because she never got certified mail. She opened it at the kitchen table while drinking her coffee. Dear Mrs. Patricia Williams, this letter is to inform you that the automatic mortgage payment scheduled for the property at 847 Maple Drive has been canceled. As of this date, no future payments will be processed through the previous account. Your next mortgage payment of $2,847.92 is due by the 15th of this month. Failure to pay will result in late fees and potential foreclosure proceedings. Patricia read it twice, her coffee growing cold. Then she called the mortgage company. There must be some mistake, she told the customer service representative. The mortgage was always paid automatically. My son had it set up. According to our records, ma'am, the automatic payment was linked to an external business account. That account has now closed the authorization for payments. What business account? I'm not authorized to share that information. But you'll need to set up a new payment method by the 15th, which is 6 days from now. Patricia hung up and immediately called Terrence. Something's wrong with the house. The mortgage isn't being paid. What do you mean it's not being paid? Didn't Gregory have it on autopay? That's what I thought. But the bank says the account that was paying has stopped. What account? They won't tell me. Terrence, the payment is almost $3,000 and it's due in less than a week. There was silence on the other end. Then, it was her. It had to be her. Naomi. But how? She didn't have any money. Gregory always said. Gregory said a lot of things, Ma. Maybe they weren't all true. Patricia felt her chest tighten. $3,000. She lived on Social Security and Howard's pension. They had maybe $1,000 in savings. What am I supposed to do? I'll call her, Terrence said. I'll make her see reason. But when Terrence called Naomi's number, he got a message saying the number was no longer in service. He tried texting. Nothing. He found her on social media and sent her a message. It bounced back, she'd blocked him. She won't answer, he told Patricia. Changed her number. Then we need to find her. She's probably still in town somewhere. "Let me try the lawyer," Terrence said. "The one from the will reading." Thomas Henderson's office was sympathetic but unhelpful. "I'm sorry, but I only represented Mr. Gregory Williams in his estate planning. Mrs. Naomi Williams is not my client, and I can't give out her contact information. She's stealing from us." Patricia yelled into the phone. "Ma'am, if you believe there's been theft or fraud, you should contact the police. But from what I understand of the situation, no crime has been committed. Mrs. Williams simply stopped making voluntary payments on a property that she has no legal obligation to support." Patricia slammed the phone down. 2 days later, the second letter arrived. This one went to Terrence. "Dear Mr. Terrence Williams, this letter concerns the fishing boat currently registered in the name of Gregory Williams, located at Marina Slip 47. Please be advised that storage fees for this slip are 3 months past due. The account that previously paid these fees automatically has been closed. The outstanding balance is $2,400, due immediately. If not paid within 10 days, the marina will exercise its right to sell the vessel to recover costs." Terrence drove to the marina that afternoon. The boat was still there, a nice 20-footer that Gregory had bought 3 years ago. Or at least, Terrence had thought Gregory had bought it. Now he was starting to wonder. "I need to see the account history for this slip," he told the marina office manager. She pulled it up on her computer. "Payments have been coming from Fletcher Technologies, a business account, for the past 3 years. Automatic withdrawal on the 1st of every month. But the authorization was canceled last week." "Fletcher Technologies?" "Yes, sir. Would you like to set up a new payment method?" Terrence left without answering. Fletcher Technologies. He never heard of it. He pulled out his phone and searched for it. The website came up immediately. Professional, sleek, modern. Customer relationship management solutions for growing businesses. Client testimonials, case studies, a team page. And there, at the top of the team page, Naomi Fletcher, founder and CEO. Naomi Fletcher was her maiden name. She'd been running a company this whole time? Terrence clicked through to her bio. Naomi Fletcher founded Fletcher Technologies in 2013 with a vision to make enterprise-level CRM solutions accessible to small and medium businesses. Under her leadership, the company has grown from a single-person startup to a multi-million-dollar operation serving over 2,000 clients nationwide. Multi-million-dollar operation. Terrence sat in his truck in the marina parking lot, staring at his phone. All these years, while Gregory was bragging about being the provider, about taking care of his wife, Naomi had been running a company, making millions, and paying for everything. He called Monica. "Did you know Naomi had a company?" "What? No. What are you talking about?" "Look up Fletcher Technologies. She's the CEO. Has been for years." "You're lying." "I'm looking at her picture on their website right now. She's been running a multi-million-dollar business the whole time she was married to Gregory." Monica was quiet for a long moment. Then, "So when Gregory was buying those cars, taking us all out to dinner, acting like he was so successful, it was her money. All of it. And we kicked her out. We treated her like she was nothing." "Yeah." "Oh God, Terrence, what did we do?" The next morning, Patricia received the third letter. This one was about the cars. "Dear Mrs. Patricia Williams, the vehicles currently parked at 847 Maple Drive, 2023 Lexus ES and 2023 BMW X5, are leased through Fletcher Technologies. As of this date, the lease agreements have been terminated. A recovery agent will arrive on Monday, May 12th, to retrieve both vehicles. Please ensure all personal belongings are removed before that date." Patricia was sitting at the kitchen table with Howard when she read it. "They're taking the cars." "What cars?" "The Lexus and the BMW. They were leased through her company. They're repossessing them on Monday." Howard put down his newspaper. "Her company?" "Naomi. She has a company. A big one. Terrence found out yesterday." "How big?" "Millions of dollars." Howard was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "We really messed up, didn't we?" Patricia didn't answer. She couldn't. Because sitting there in her kitchen, in the house she couldn't afford, waiting for cars to be repossessed, looking at a mortgage payment she had no way to make, she was starting to realize the truth. They hadn't just messed up. They'd thrown away the one person who'd been holding everything together. The one person who'd actually been taking care of Gregory, taking care of all of them, while they'd treated her like she was worthless. She picked up her phone and tried to call Naomi one more time. The number was disconnected. Patricia laid her head on the table and cried. On Monday morning, a tow truck showed up at 847 Maple Drive. The driver knocked on the door, showed Patricia the paperwork, and loaded both the Lexus and the BMW onto his truck. The neighbors came out to watch. "Everything okay, Patricia?" one of them called. "Fine," Patricia said, her voice tight. "Everything's fine." But it wasn't fine. The mortgage was now 12 days overdue. The late fees were adding up. The boat would be sold in 4 days. Gregory's truck was making a weird noise and needed repairs they couldn't afford. And Naomi, the woman they'd treated like garbage, was somewhere out there running a multimillion-dollar company. Not answering their calls. Not responding to their messages. Not caring what happened to any of them. Patricia stood in the empty driveway where 2 expensive cars used to be parked and realized something that made her feel sick to her stomach. Naomi had won. No, that wasn't quite right. Naomi hadn't won. She just stopped losing. And Patricia had no one to blame but herself. Naomi was in a meeting with her development team when her assistant knocked on the conference room door. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's someone here to see you. She says it's urgent." "Who is it?" "Her name is Candace Morrison. She says she knew your late husband." The conference room went quiet. Everyone knew Naomi's husband had recently died, but she'd been clear that personal matters stayed personal and work stayed work. "Tell her I'm in a meeting and to make an appointment," Naomi said. "I tried. She's refusing to leave. She's crying in the lobby." Naomi closed her laptop. "Excuse me, everyone. Let's pick this up in an hour." She walked out to the lobby where Candace sat on one of the modern leather couches, mascara running down her face. She looked different than she had in Gregory's office that day, thinner, paler, like she hadn't been sleeping. "Candace," Naomi said, "this is my place of business. Whatever this is about, it's not appropriate." "I'm pregnant," Candace blurted out. "With Gregory's baby." Everyone in the lobby turned to look. Naomi felt her face grow hot, but she kept her voice steady. "My office. Now." She led Candace down the hall to her private office and closed the door. "Sit." Candace sat, pulling tissues from her purse. "I'm sorry to show up like this, but you changed your number and I didn't know how else to find you." "Start from the beginning. Gregory and we were together for almost a year. He said he was going to leave you, that he was just waiting for the right time. Then he died and I found out I was pregnant." Naomi sat down at her desk. "When did you find out?" 2 weeks ago. I'm almost 3 months along. And you came to me because? Because I need help. I'm only 26, I work in accounting making $40,000 a year, I live in a studio apartment I can barely afford, and I'm about to have a baby by myself. Gregory always said if anything happened he'd take care of me. He promised. Gregory promised a lot of things, Naomi said quietly. Most of them weren't true. But you have money. I saw the news article about your company. You're worth millions. You can afford to help me. Naomi leaned back in her chair. Let me make sure I understand this. You had an affair with my husband for a year. You knew he was married. And now you want me, his widow, to financially support you and a baby that may or may not be his. It's his. I wasn't with anyone else. That's between you and your conscience, Candace. But here's what's going to happen. If you truly believe Gregory is the father, you'll agree to a DNA test. If the test proves he's the father, we can discuss child support arrangements through the proper legal channels. But that takes time. I need money now. I have medical bills, I need to move to a bigger place. Then I suggest you figure that out. I'm not giving you money based on your word that Gregory was the father. I barely knew my own husband as it turns out. I certainly don't know you. Candace's face turned red. You're being really cruel right now. Am I? Because from where I'm sitting, you're asking the woman whose husband you slept with to pay your bills. That seems pretty bold. I'll go to the press, Candace said suddenly. I'll tell them everything. About Gregory's affair, about how you're refusing to help your husband's child. Go ahead, Naomi said. Tell them. Tell them about the affair you had with a married man. Tell them how you're demanding money from his widow. See how sympathetic people are. Candace stared at her. You've changed. No, Naomi said. I just stopped pretending to be someone I'm not. Now here's my final offer. You get a DNA test. If it proves Gregory is the father, my lawyer will work out a fair child support arrangement. If you refuse the test, you get nothing. And in the meantime? In the meantime, you figure out your life like an adult. You made choices, Candace. Those choices have consequences. Candace stood up, shaking. You're going to regret this. I doubt it. After Candace left, Naomi sat at her desk for a long time. Her hands were trembling, but not from fear or anger. From relief. Because she'd stood up for herself. She'd said no. She'd refused to be manipulated. A year ago she would have written Candace a check just to avoid conflict. Would have felt guilty, would have blamed herself somehow for Gregory's cheating. But that version of Naomi was gone. Her phone buzzed. A text from Robert: "Heard you had a visitor. You okay?" "I'm fine. She wants money. Claims to be pregnant with Gregory's baby. You want me to handle it?" "Already did. Told her DNA test or nothing." "Good. That's the right call." Naomi set down her phone and looked out her office window. The city spread out below her, full of people living their complicated lives. Somewhere out there, Patricia was trying to figure out how to pay a mortgage. Terrence was dealing with boat storage fees. Monica was probably gossiping about how cruel Naomi had become. And Candace was learning that sleeping with someone else's husband didn't guarantee a payoff. Naomi didn't feel guilty. She felt free. 2 weeks later, Robert called her. "You're not going to believe this." "What?" "Candace Morrison got a DNA test." "She did? How do you know?" "Because her lawyer contacted me. She didn't wait for you, she went ahead and did a paternity test at one of those early testing clinics. Got the results back today." "And?" "Gregory's not the father." Naomi felt something loosen in her chest, something she hadn't realized was tight. "He's not." "Not even close. According to the report, there's zero chance he's the biological father." So she was lying. Or she was wrong. Either way, she's dropped all claims. Her lawyer sent over a formal letter stating she won't be pursuing any financial support from Gregory's estate or from you personally. Did she say anything else? Just that she made a mistake and apologizes for any distress caused. Naomi laughed. Not a mean laugh, just a tired one. A mistake. She calls a year-long affair a mistake. You want me to respond? No. It's done. Let her move on with her life. After she hung up, Naomi sat very still. Gregory hadn't been the father. Which meant Candace had been sleeping with someone else while she was sleeping with Gregory. Which meant Gregory had been just as clueless as Naomi about what was really going on in his own life. It was almost poetic. That afternoon, Monica showed up at Fletcher Technologies. Naomi's assistant buzzed her office. "Monica Williams-Porter is here. She doesn't have an appointment." Naomi sighed. "Send her back." Monica came in looking uncomfortable, like she'd rather be anywhere else. "I know you don't want to talk to me." "You're right, I don't. But you're here, so talk." "I'm sorry. For everything. For how we treated you, for assuming things about you, for being part of throwing you out of the house. I was wrong." Naomi waited. "I found out about your company," Monica continued. "About how successful you are, about how you were paying for everything while Gregory took credit. And I realized we didn't know you at all. We just believed what Gregory told us and he was lying about everything." "Okay. Okay? That's all you're going to say?" "What do you want me to say, Monica?" "You apologized. I heard you. But that doesn't change what happened. It doesn't change how your family treated me. And it definitely doesn't mean we're suddenly going to be close." "I know. I wanted you to know I'm sorry." "Noted. Is there anything else?" Monica stood up. "Mom's going to lose the house. She can't afford the payments. That's not my problem." "I know it's not. But she's still Gregory's mother. And she made her choice when she threw my belongings in trash bags. When she told me I wasn't family. When she changed the locks before Gregory was even buried. Those were her choices. She was grieving. So was I." The words came out sharper than Naomi intended. "I was grieving too, Monica. I just lost my husband, and instead of getting even a moment to process that, I was thrown out of my own home by people who treated me like I was worthless. So no, I don't care that your mother is going to lose the house. She can figure it out like I had to figure things out." Monica's eyes filled with tears. "You've become really hard." "No," Naomi said. "I've become honest. There's a difference." After Monica left, Naomi called Robert. "Gregory's family is going to keep coming around, aren't they?" "Probably. Now that they know you have money. Can we do anything legally to make them stop?" "I can send cease and desist letters. But they're allowed to try to contact you. You just don't have to respond." "Do it. Send the letters. I want it formally documented that I want no contact with any of them." "Consider it done." That night, alone in her new penthouse apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view of the city, Naomi made herself dinner and thought about forgiveness. She didn't forgive Gregory's family. Not yet, maybe not ever. They'd shown her exactly who they were, and she believed them. But she also didn't hate them anymore. Hate required energy, required caring, required giving them space in her head and heart that they didn't deserve. Instead she felt nothing. And that, Naomi realized, was its own kind of freedom. The real estate agent had shown Naomi 17 properties before they found the right one. A penthouse in the new high-rise downtown, 3 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, 1,200 square feet of open living space with windows that wrapped around 2 sides of the building. "It's perfect," Naomi said, standing in the empty living room. Her voice echoed off the hardwood floors. "It's one of our most expensive units," the agent warned. $3,500 a month. "I'll take it. Don't you want to think about it? Discuss it with—" The agent stopped, remembering that Naomi's husband had just died. "I'm sorry. Of course. Would you like to apply?" "I don't want to apply. I want to buy it." The agent's eyes widened. "Buy it? Outright? No mortgage? Have your office send the paperwork to my lawyer." Naomi handed her Robert's card. "I'd like to close within 2 weeks." She moved in 3 weeks after Gregory's funeral. Hired movers, bought new furniture, got rid of everything that reminded her of her old life. New couch, new bed, new dishes, new everything. The trash bags from the garage were the last things to arrive. Naomi had them brought up to her apartment and spent an entire weekend sorting through them, deciding what to keep and what to throw away. Most of it went in the trash. Clothes Gregory had picked out for her, gifts from his family, photos from their wedding. She kept her grandmother's quilt, a few books, some jewelry that had belonged to her mother. The rest disappeared into garbage bags again, but this time by her choice. On Monday morning, she held a company-wide meeting at Fletcher Technologies. 200 employees packed into the largest conference room, everyone buzzing with curiosity about why they'd been called together. Naomi stood at the front of the room, wearing a sharp navy suit, her hair up, her shoulders back. "Some of you know me as Naomi Fletcher, your CEO. Some of you know me as someone who worked from home most of the time. And some of you probably had no idea who I was beyond a name on the company directory." A few nervous laughs. "That changes today. I'm done working from the shadows. I'm done pretending to be smaller than I am. Fletcher Technologies has been my company for 12 years, and it's time I step into that role fully and publicly." She clicked to the next slide. "We're expanding. 3 new offices opening in Seattle, Austin, and Atlanta. We're hiring 300 more employees over the next year. We're moving from small and medium business clients into enterprise-level contracts. And we're going to triple our revenue." The room erupted in applause. People were smiling, excited, energized. "This is going to require work from all of you," Naomi continued. "Long hours, high pressure, big challenges. But it also means promotions, raises, growth opportunities. I'm not asking anyone to do anything I'm not willing to do myself. I'll be here, working alongside you, building this company into something remarkable." More applause. After the meeting, her head of sales, a sharp woman named Jordan, caught up with her. "That was quite a speech. You think it was too much?" "I think it was exactly right. People needed to see you. Really see you. They're pumped now." "Good. Because I meant every word." Over the next month, Naomi threw herself into work. She met with investors, closed deals, hired new staff. She did interviews with business magazines, podcasts, local news. Her story, "Woman Builds Multimillion-Dollar Company While Quietly Married to Man Who Took All the Credit," became a viral sensation. "You're everywhere," Jordan said one day, showing Naomi her phone where a clip from one of her interviews was trending on social media. "Is that bad? Are you kidding? It's incredible. Applications for positions here have tripled. Everyone wants to work for the woman who built an empire in secret." Naomi smiled. "I didn't build it in secret. I just didn't advertise it." "Same difference. You're becoming famous." Famous? The word felt strange. For 8 years, Naomi had worked so hard to be invisible, to stay small, to avoid attention. Now she was everywhere, and instead of feeling exposed, she felt powerful. Her phone rang constantly, interview requests, speaking engagements, board positions. She said yes to some and no to others, learning to prioritize, learning that she didn't have to do everything just because someone asked. One afternoon, she ran into an old college friend at a coffee shop. Tara had been her roommate senior year, one of the few people from her past life who'd known her before Gregory. "Oh my God, Naomi?" Tara said, stopping mid-order. "Is that really you? Tara?" "Hey." They hugged, and Tara stepped back, looking her up and down. "Look at you. I've been seeing you everywhere online. When did this happen?" "Which part?" "All of it. Last I heard, you were married and your husband was some big-shot businessman." Naomi ordered her coffee and gestured to a table. "That's a long story. They sat, and Naomi gave her the abbreviated version. Gregory's affair, his death, his family's treatment of her, the revelation of her company's worth. Tara's mouth fell open. You're telling me you were running a $50 million company while married to him and he didn't know? Basically. I don't even know what to say. Why did you hide it? Because every time I tried to talk about my work, he made me feel like it didn't matter. Like it was cute that I had my little business, but his career was the real one. So eventually I stopped trying. I just did my work and came home and pretended to be who he wanted me to be. That sounds exhausting. It was. And now I'm just me. No pretending, no hiding, no making myself smaller. It's terrifying and exciting, and I'm not sure what I'm doing half the time, but I'm doing it as myself. Tara reached across the table and squeezed her hand. I'm proud of you. The old Naomi from college? She'd be proud too. That night, Naomi went on her first real date since Gregory died. His name was Bennett, he was an architect, and they'd met at a networking event 2 weeks earlier. He'd asked her to dinner, and she'd said yes before she could overthink it. They met at a small Italian restaurant, nothing fancy, just good food and quiet conversation. I have to admit, Bennett said over appetizers, I was nervous about asking you out. You're kind of intimidating. Intimidating how? You're this successful CEO, you're all over the news, you're clearly brilliant. I'm just a guy who designs buildings. Just a guy who designs buildings? Bennett, I looked up your work. You designed the new art museum downtown. That building is incredible. He smiled. Thanks. But it feels different. You built a whole company from nothing. And you create spaces that people will remember for generations. We're both just doing what we're good at. The conversation flowed easily. They talked about work, about life, about everything and nothing. Bennett didn't ask about Gregory, didn't pry into her past, just seemed interested in who she was now. At the end of the night, walking her to her car, he said, I'd really like to see you again. I'd like that too. Even though I'm just a guy who designs buildings? Naomi laughed. Especially because you're a guy who designs buildings. Call me. He did call 3 days later. They went out again and then again. It was casual, easy, nothing serious yet. But it was nice to spend time with someone who saw her as she was now, not as who she'd been pretending to be. 6 weeks after Gregory's funeral, Naomi sat in her penthouse apartment and realized she was happy. Not fake happy, not pretending everything is fine happy. Actually genuinely happy. Her company was thriving. Her new apartment felt like home. She had friends, had a social life, had possibilities opening up everywhere she looked. And Gregory's family? They were somewhere out there, dealing with their own problems she hadn't caused and wasn't responsible for solving. She should probably feel guilty about that. Should probably feel bad that Patricia was losing the house, that Terrence had to sell the boat, that Monica was struggling. But she didn't. Because they'd made their choices and she'd made hers. And for the first time in 8 years, Naomi was choosing herself. Patricia Williams stood in the lobby of the bank, holding a folder full of documents she'd been told to bring. The mortgage specialist had been polite but firm on the phone. Come in to discuss options or the foreclosure would proceed. Mrs. Williams? A young woman in a gray suit approached. I'm Jennifer, I'll be helping you today. Let's go to my office. Patricia followed her to a small room with glass walls. Everything felt too exposed, like everyone in the bank could see her failing. I've reviewed your account, Jennifer said, pulling up information on her computer. The house payment is now 73 days past due. With late fees, the total amount owed is $9,412. $9,000. Patricia felt sick. I don't have that kind of money. Do you have any assets you could use as collateral? Other property, retirement accounts? We cashed out Howard's 401k to make last month's payment. There's nothing left. Jennifer's expression softened. Mrs. Williams, I want to help you, but the bank has procedures. If you can't bring the account current within 30 days, we'll have no choice but to begin foreclosure proceedings. But where am I supposed to get $9,000? Could you sell the house? Sell it? But it's my home. My son left it to me. I understand this is emotional. But selling might be your best option. You'd at least walk away with the equity. Patricia left the bank feeling defeated. She drove home, to the house that wouldn't be hers much longer, and found Howard in the living room. How'd it go? He asked. They're going to foreclose. Unless we come up with $9,000 in 30 days. We don't have $9,000. I know that. Patricia snapped, then immediately felt guilty. I'm sorry. I don't know what to do. Maybe we should call Naomi? Absolutely not. Patricia, she's the only one who can help. She's the reason we're in this mess. Is she? Really? Howard set down his newspaper and looked at his wife. Because from what I can see, she paid that mortgage for years. She paid for Gregory's cars, his boat, probably half the stuff in this house. And we threw her out like she was nothing. She never told us she had money. She didn't have to tell us anything. She was Gregory's wife. We should have treated her with respect regardless. Patricia felt tears burning her eyes. But Gregory said. Gregory lied. About a lot of things apparently. And we believed him because it was easier than asking questions. The next week, Patricia got a call from a real estate agent. Mrs. Williams, I've been contacted by a buyer who's interested in your property. They're offering $200,000 cash 30-day close. $200,000? The house is worth at least $400,000. In a normal market, yes. But you're in pre-foreclosure. Cash buyers know that and they use it to negotiate lower prices. This is actually a decent offer given your situation. I need to think about it. I'd think fast. The foreclosure sale will probably get you even less. Patricia hung up and cried. 58 years old and she was going to lose her house. The house where she'd raised her children, where she'd lived for 30 years, where Gregory had grown up. All because she'd kicked out the one person who'd been paying for it. Meanwhile, Terrence was dealing with his own problems. The marina had sold Gregory's boat to cover the storage fees. He'd gotten a check for $800, the amount left over after they'd taken what they were owed. $800 for a boat Gregory had claimed cost $30,000. Terrence used the money to pay off a credit card he'd maxed out trying to cover other expenses. Then he sat down and really looked at his finances for the first time in years. He was broke. Completely broke. He'd been living paycheck to paycheck, using credit cards to fill the gaps, assuming that eventually Gregory's estate would give him enough money to catch up. Instead, Gregory's estate had given him $42,000, which would have been great if Terrence didn't have $38,000 in credit card debt. He went to visit his mother and found her packing boxes. What are you doing? Selling the house. Or losing it, one or the other. Doesn't matter anymore. Where are you going to go? I don't know. Maybe Howard's sister will let us stay with her for a while. Or we'll rent an apartment somewhere cheap. Terrence looked around at the house where he'd grown up, where he'd learned to ride a bike in the driveway, where he'd brought his first girlfriend home. I can't believe it's come to this. Believe it? This is what happens when you build your life on someone else's money and then treat them like garbage. It was the first time Patricia had admitted any fault. Terrence sat down heavily on the couch. We really messed up, didn't we? Oh, we did more than mess up. We destroyed any chance of a relationship with the only person who actually cared about Gregory enough to support him through all his failures. Gregory failed? Patricia laughed bitterly. Honey, your brother was terrible at his job. He got fired from 3 positions before landing at that pharmaceutical company, and he only kept that job because he was good at schmoozing clients. His last performance review, I found it going through his papers, said he was on a performance improvement plan. He was probably going to get fired within the year. But he always said. He said a lot of things. None of them were true. Monica came by that afternoon. She'd brought Chinese food, trying to lift her mother's spirits. The 3 of them sat around the kitchen table picking at lo mein and fried rice. I saw Naomi on the news yesterday, Monica said quietly. She was talking about expanding her company. Opening new offices, hiring hundreds of people. Good for her, Patricia said flatly. She looked happy. I said good for her. Mom, don't you feel bad at all? About how we treated her? Of course I feel bad. I feel terrible. But what am I supposed to do about it now? She won't take my calls, she sent legal letters telling us to leave her alone, she's made it perfectly clear she wants nothing to do with us. Can you blame her? Monica asked. We literally threw her belongings into trash bags. I was grieving. So was she. Her husband just died and instead of getting any support from his family, she got thrown out of her home. What did you think was going to happen? The kitchen went quiet. Patricia pushed her food around her plate. I thought I was protecting my home. I thought she was trying to take advantage of us. But she wasn't. She'd been taking care of us. All of us. And we didn't even notice. A week later the house sold. Patricia and Howard moved into a 2-bedroom apartment in a complex across town. The furniture from their house didn't fit, so they had to sell most of it. They kept the basics, a couch, their bed, the kitchen table. The rest went to an estate sale that made Patricia feel like her whole life was being picked over by strangers. Terrence filed for bankruptcy. Monica's marriage started having problems because of the financial stress. Gregory's cousins and aunts and uncles all quietly distanced themselves from the family drama. And through it all, Naomi kept succeeding. New articles about her company, new interviews, new achievements. Patricia saw her once, by accident, at a restaurant downtown. Naomi was there with a man, laughing at something he'd said. She looked radiant. Happy. Free. Patricia wanted to go over, to apologize again, to beg for forgiveness. But Howard held her arm. Let her be, he said quietly. She's moved on. We should too. So Patricia sat there with her cheap wine and watched the woman she'd thrown away like trash living her best life. And she knew with absolute certainty that she'd lost something she could never get back. Not Naomi's money. Not the house. Not any of the material things. But the chance to be part of something good. The chance to know someone remarkable. The chance to have had a real relationship with the woman her son had married. That chance was gone and it was never coming back. And Patricia had no one to blame but herself. 6 months after Gregory's funeral, Naomi sat in Robert's office reviewing a real estate listing. The house at 847 Maple Drive was going up for auction the following week. The bank expects it to sell for around $250,000, Robert said. Maybe less, given it needs some work. Work it didn't need when I was paying for maintenance, Naomi said. Exactly. Patricia let it deteriorate once she couldn't afford upkeep. Naomi studied the listing photos. The yard was overgrown. Paint was peeling on the shutters. The place looked sad, abandoned. I want to buy it, she said. Robert looked up from his computer. You want to buy your old house? Yes. Why? Because I have an idea. The auction was held on a Tuesday morning at the county courthouse. About 15 people showed up, most of them investors looking for cheap properties to flip. Naomi sat in the back row wearing sunglasses and a baseball cap, trying to stay anonymous. The auctioneer started the bidding at $150,000. A man in a suit raised his paddle. $150. Another bidder, $160. $170. $180. Naomi waited. The bidding crept up slowly, people dropping out one by one. At $220,000, there were only 3 bidders left. $230, said the man in the suit. The other 2 bidders conferred, then shook their heads. They were out. The auctioneer pointed at the man. $230,000, going once, going twice. $300,000, Naomi said clearly. Everyone turned to look at her. The man in the suit frowned. $310. $350, Naomi countered. Ma'am, are you serious? The auctioneer asked. Completely serious. $350,000, cash. The man in the suit stared at her for a long moment, then shook his head and left. No one else bid. The auctioneer brought down his gavel. Sold. To the lady in the back for $350,000. Naomi removed her sunglasses. Several people gasped when they recognized her. Someone pulled out their phone to take a picture. By the time she'd signed the paperwork and left the courthouse, the news was already spreading online. Tech CEO Naomi Fletcher buys former marital home at auction. Patricia found out from a Facebook message. One of her friends had seen the news and thought she should know. She called Howard, her hands shaking. She bought it. Naomi bought the house. What? At the auction this morning. She paid $350,000 for it. That's way more than it's worth. I know. Why would she do that? They found out 2 weeks later when the local news ran a story. Fletcher Technologies founder establishes women's shelter in personal tribute. The camera showed Naomi standing in front of 847 Maple Drive, now freshly painted with a new sign. New Beginnings House, a safe haven for women rebuilding their lives. This house represents a difficult period in my life, Naomi told the reporter. A time when I felt trapped, invisible, and worthless. I want it to become a place where other women in similar situations can find safety, support, and the resources they need to start over. The shelter would provide free housing for up to 8 women at a time, along with counseling, job training, childcare assistance, and legal support. I've been fortunate in my career, Naomi continued. I want to use that fortune to help women who haven't had the same opportunities. Every woman deserves the chance to build a life on her own terms. The reporter asked, Is it true this was your former marital home? It was, yes. And your late husband's family was forced to sell it after falling behind on mortgage payments? I don't comment on other people's financial situations. I can only speak to why I bought this property and what I plan to do with it. Some people are saying this is revenge. Naomi smiled. Revenge would be letting the house sit empty and rot. This is redemption. I'm taking something that held a lot of pain and turning it into something that will help people. That's not revenge. That's healing. Patricia watched the news segment 3 times, her hands clenched in her lap. Howard sat next to her, silent. She turned it into a shelter, Patricia finally said. A women's shelter. For women getting out of bad situations. Yes. Patricia started crying. Not angry tears, not bitter tears. Just sad, tired tears. She was in a bad situation. With Gregory, with us. And we made it worse. We did. And now she's helping other women in bad situations. She is. I'm a terrible person. No, Howard said, taking his wife's hand. You're a person who made mistakes. Big ones. But terrible people don't regret their actions. They don't sit here crying about the harm they caused. Terrible people don't care. But it's too late. There's nothing I can do to fix this. You're right. It's too late to fix things with Naomi. She's moved on and she should move on. But it's not too late to learn from this. To be better to the next person who needs kindness. To treat people with respect regardless of what we think they can offer us. Patricia wiped her eyes. I don't know how to live with this. One day at a time. Same as everything else. The shelter opened 3 weeks later. Naomi attended the ribbon-cutting ceremony, along with the mayor, several city council members, and about 100 supporters. Jordan from her company was there, along with Bennett, who'd become a regular presence in Naomi's life. The first 3 women moved in that afternoon. Naomi met with each of them privately, listening to their stories, assuring them they were safe now. One woman, about 40 with 2 kids, gripped Naomi's hands. Thank you. You don't understand what this means. I think I do, Naomi said gently. I've been where you are. Maybe not exactly the same, but close enough. You're going to be okay. This is your new beginning. That night, exhausted but satisfied, Naomi went home to her penthouse. Bennett had offered to take her to dinner, but she declined. She needed time alone to process the day. She stood at her windows looking out at the city lights and thought about the journey that had brought her here. 8 years of pretending. Gregory's death. His family's cruelty. The revelation of her company's worth. And now this, turning her pain into purpose. Her phone buzzed. A text from Jordan. You were amazing today. What you're doing with that shelter is going to change lives. Naomi texted back. That's the plan. Another text, this one from a number she didn't recognize. This is Monica. I saw the news about the shelter. It's beautiful what you're doing. I'm sorry for everything. I understand if you never want to talk to me, but I wanted you to know that what you're doing is incredible. Naomi stared at the message for a long time. Part of her wanted to delete it, to maintain the boundaries she'd set. Part of her wanted to respond, to acknowledge the apology. In the end, she did neither. She just let the message sit there, unread, unopened. Maybe someday she'd be ready to engage with Gregory's family again. Maybe someday she'd be able to forgive them completely. But not today. Today was about celebrating what she'd built from the ashes of her old life. Today was about knowing that she'd taken the worst thing that had ever happened to her and turned it into something good. Today was about freedom. She turned off her phone and went to bed, sleeping peacefully in a home that was truly hers, in a life she'd built on her own terms, with a future full of possibilities she'd created herself. And for the first time in 8 years, she didn't dream about Gregory at all. 1 year after Gregory's death, Naomi sat in her office at Fletcher Technologies reviewing the quarterly reports. The numbers were staggering. Revenue had increased by 240%. They'd opened offices in 7 cities instead of the planned 3. Staff had grown from 200 to over 900 employees. You're doing that thing again, Jordan said from the doorway. What thing? That thing where you look at the numbers like you can't quite believe they're real. Naomi laughed. Can you blame me? A year ago I was getting thrown out of my own house. Now I'm running a $100 million company. Not 100 million. We crossed 120 last quarter. Congratulations, boss. You're officially a mogul. $120 million. The number still felt surreal. Jordan sat down across from her. You know what I think is the most impressive part? What? That you did all this while building the shelter, doing all those interviews, becoming the face of women in tech, and somehow managing to have an actual life. I don't know how you do it all. I don't sleep much, Naomi said with a smile. And I have an incredible team. You guys do most of the heavy lifting. We execute your vision. There's a difference. After Jordan left, Naomi pulled up the shelter's website on her computer. New Beginnings House had housed 43 women in its first year. 27 of them had completed the program and moved into their own places. 15 had found full-time employment. 3 had started their own businesses with microloans from a fund Naomi had established. The success rate was beyond anything she'd hoped for. Her phone rang. Bennett. They'd been dating exclusively for 6 months now, taking things slow, building something real. Hey, she answered. Hey yourself. Still at the office? Just finishing up. Why? Because I made dinner reservations for 7, and it's 6:45. Naomi looked at her watch. Oh no. I'm sorry, I lost track of time. It's okay. I figured. I'm downstairs in the lobby. I'll drive us to the restaurant, and you can work in the car if you need to. She logged off her computer and headed downstairs. Bennett was waiting in the lobby holding a coffee. I know you didn't take a lunch break, so I brought you this. You're too good to me. Somebody has to be. They drove to the restaurant, a small French place that had become their favorite spot. Over dinner, Bennett told her about his latest project, a community center he was designing for the neighborhood where she'd built the shelter. I'm thinking lots of natural light, open spaces, rooms that can be used for classes or meetings, he said, sketching on a napkin. Something that feels welcoming, not institutional. That sounds perfect. I was hoping you'd think so because I want to pitch it to you officially. I'd like Fletcher Technologies to be one of the sponsors. Done. Don't you want to see the full proposal first? I trust you. And I love that you're designing something for that community. They need it. Bennett reached across the table and took her hand. You know what I love about you? What? You've been through something terrible, and instead of becoming bitter, you became better. You took all that pain and turned it into purpose. That's incredible. Naomi felt her throat tighten. I didn't always feel incredible. For a long time I just felt lost. But you found your way. That takes strength. They finished dinner and walked along the waterfront, something they did often when the weather was nice. The city lights reflected off the water, and Naomi felt peaceful in a way she'd never felt with Gregory. I need to tell you something, Bennett said as they walked. Okay. I'm in love with you. Have been for a while now. And I know we're taking things slow, I know you're still processing everything that happened, and I'm not trying to rush you. I just wanted you to know. Naomi stopped walking and turned to face him. I love you too. Yeah. You're kind and patient, and you see me for who I actually am. Not who I'm trying to be, not who someone else wants me to be. Just me. Do you know how rare that is? I think I might be getting an idea, Bennett said and kissed her. The next morning, Naomi visited the shelter for their weekly check-in. She met with the director, reviewed the budget, and sat in on a support group meeting. One of the new residents, a young woman named Tasha, raised her hand during the meeting. Can I ask you something personal? Sure, Naomi said. How did you know when you were ready to stop being angry? The question caught Naomi off guard. She thought about it for a moment. I'm not sure I did stop being angry. But I realized that being angry was taking up space in my life that I wanted to use for other things. Better things. And every day that I focused on building something new instead of dwelling on what happened to me was a day I took back my power. But don't they deserve to be held accountable? The people who hurt you. Maybe. Probably. But I'm not a judge or a jury. I'm just a person trying to live my best life. And I found that the best accountability was succeeding without them. Living well. Being happy. Proving that their treatment of me didn't define me. Tasha nodded slowly. Living well is the best revenge. I prefer to think of it as living well is the best life. Revenge implies I'm still thinking about them, still letting them take up space in my head. I'm not. I'm thinking about me, about my company, about this shelter, about the people I love. They're not part of my story anymore. After the meeting, Naomi drove to a coffee shop where she was meeting Tara for lunch. Her old college friend had become a regular part of her life again, someone who knew her before Gregory, who remembered who she'd been when she was young and full of dreams. You look happy, Tara said when Naomi sat down. I am happy. Good. You deserve it. Tara paused. Did you see the article in Business Week? They're calling you one of the most influential women in tech. I saw it. It's surreal. It's deserved. You built something incredible, Naomi. Not just the company but the person you've become. That afternoon, Naomi got an unexpected email. The subject line read, from Patricia Williams. She almost deleted it without reading. But something made her open it. Dear Naomi, I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I know I have no right to contact you after everything that happened. But I saw the news about your shelter, about all the good you're doing, and I wanted to reach out. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted to tell you that I'm sorry. Truly, deeply sorry for how I treated you. You deserved better from me, from all of us. You were my son's wife, and regardless of whatever else was happening, you were family. I should have treated you with kindness and respect. Instead, I treated you like you were nothing. And I will regret that for the rest of my life. I want you to know that what you're doing with your life, with your company, with that shelter, it's beautiful. Gregory would be proud. I'm proud. And I'm sorry it took me so long to see what an incredible person you are. You don't owe me a response. I just wanted you to know. Patricia. Naomi read the email 3 times. She could see Patricia's pain in every word, her regret, her genuine remorse. But Naomi didn't respond. Not because she was angry. Not because she wanted to punish Patricia. But because some chapters needed to stay closed. Some relationships needed to remain in the past. Patricia had said she wasn't asking for forgiveness, but Naomi forgave her anyway. Quietly, privately, without ceremony or announcement. She forgave Patricia and Howard and Monica and Terrence and everyone else who'd hurt her. But forgiveness didn't mean reconciliation. Forgiveness didn't mean letting them back into her life. It just meant she was letting go of the last bit of resentment she'd been carrying. That evening, Naomi hosted a dinner party at her penthouse. Jordan and her husband, Bennett, Tara and her partner, Robert and his wife, and a few other close friends. People who'd supported her, believed in her, stood by her through everything. I want to make a toast, Naomi said, raising her glass. To new beginnings. To building the life you want instead of accepting the life you're given. To surrounding yourself with people who see your worth. And to letting go of anything and anyone that makes you feel small. Hear, hear, everyone chorused, glasses clinking. After dinner, while everyone was scattered around the apartment talking and laughing, Bennett pulled Naomi onto the balcony. The city spread out below them, glittering and alive. This is a good life, he said quietly. It is. You've come a long way from trash bags in the garage. Naomi laughed. I really have. You know what's amazing? You could have let that experience make you bitter. You could have spent the last year being angry and vengeful. But instead you built a shelter. You helped people. You became more successful than anyone imagined. That's not revenge. That's grace. I don't know about grace, Naomi said. I think it's just survival. I had a choice, let what happened destroy me or let it transform me. I chose transformation. Well, I think you're amazing. I think you're biased. Absolutely. But that doesn't make it less true. They stood there together, looking out at the city, at the life Naomi had built for herself. A life on her own terms. A life where she was seen, valued, respected. A life where her worth wasn't determined by her relationship to someone else, but by who she was as a person. Inside the apartment, her friends were laughing, celebrating, living. The shelter was thriving. Her company was succeeding beyond her wildest dreams. She had love, had purpose, had peace. Gregory's family was somewhere out there, probably still struggling, still dealing with the consequences of their choices. Naomi hoped they'd learned something. Hoped they'd grown. But their journey was no longer hers to worry about. She'd walked away from that garage floor, from those trash bags, from the humiliation and pain. And she'd kept walking, kept building, kept becoming more fully herself with every step. The woman who'd stood in that garage a year ago wouldn't recognize the woman standing on this balcony now. And that was exactly the point. Naomi Fletcher had finally, completely become herself. And she was never, ever going back.